Welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere with your host, Chris Parker.
And we're back with Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere. This is Chris Parker, and today I'm with Ana Goncalves, who is actually here in Amsterdam with me. We are both part of the Amsterdam startup community, and we have connected online. And I'm really interested to hear about what she's doing with leadership and supporting entrepreneurs with her work. So really happy to have her here and discover what she's doing as a contributor to the innovation community in Amsterdam. So Ana, welcome. And can you please share with us, what is it that you do and why do you do what you do?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this interview and in getting to know you and seeing how the conversation unveils. So what I do is I primarily help entrepreneurs to go to the core of any challenges that they're having in their business, but really by bringing up the challenges that they're having personally. What is it that they are struggling with constantly in their lives that is being impacted in their business, whether that's financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And I focus on all different areas. And usually those different areas are areas which they haven't actually looked at before, but it's been what's been holding them back in their own personal lives and in their own businesses for quite some time. And when I guide them to go to the core of that, that's where they are able to move forward to take the steps needed that they have been resistant to in the past, but are able to do it much easier. And I'm not going to lie to you, of course it's hard. Of course it's hard, but it's the only way that you can move forward by figuring out what is actually going on and then taking the steps needed in their own unique way, because everyone's very different. So how I work with each person is very unique and custom to them and who they are. And then when we go to the root and peel back all the layers and they start taking the actions forward, then I'm able to see what their vision is, who they are, and what business model is best suited to them, because I can see, how they can price their services, how can they communicate, how can they market, whether they need to be on a specific social platform, who they are and how other people can approach them in an easiest way. And for some people, it's completely the opposite of what they have been doing. But when they start doing, it is a little difficult. Then they start seeing the results, happen almost instantaneously. But it is a complete different paradigm shift on the whole level. And that's how I help entrepreneurs on a more personal level, helping them with their leadership, leadership as a whole, really. How do they manage themselves? How do they manage their lives? How do they create their lives? How do they manage their business? How do they show up in their lives? How do they show up in their business? And I really believe that everything is a reflection of what's going on inside. So that's the first thing that we look at when we start working together. And I always focus on the challenges straight away and then move from there.
Yeah, the approach really resonates with me. I find oftentimes people try to separate maybe their professional self and their personal self, when actually it's all coming from the same place. And in my experience, in fact, if you try to pretend you're something else in your leadership or your professional, then over time that will just exhaust you and break you. So Ana, why is this meaningful for you, and why have you dedicated your life to that particular mission?
That's a great question. It's meaningful for me because I've always believed really important to be myself and to use my gifts and expertise to help others. And I really excel when other people can, come back to their core, who they are, peeling back the layers and conditions that are placed on them by society and other people and even past coaches, so that they can be in the world and make a difference using their own expertise, doing the work that truly matters. So it's both me that I love to help others using my own abilities, but also what drives me is to see other people not affected by their challenges and their fears, and really standing up for what they believe in and creating that change for themselves first, and then impacting their communities and environments and also the clients they work with. So that really matters a lot to me, to see people really expressing who they are and being unafraid of moving forward, because I feel that constant desire is what also keeps me moving forward. And I'm not like this perfect human. I have challenges, of course, and they help me move forward, but it's the thing that really motivates me to make a difference, to help myself and then help others. And I really feel that everyone has very unique talents and abilities, and they don't often see that. So it's just always wonderful for them to see, what they have underneath everything that has been placed on them over the years, and to truly use it in the world.
Wow. And what was your journey, from when you were younger, I guess, or before, into becoming a sort of a leadership mastery coach, if that's what I could call it? How did you get to that point? That is, I think it's a pretty, profound thing to bring to the market and to bring to people.
Well, I've come from a very challenging family and challenging upbringing and abusive family upbringing, and I had a lot of challenges growing up. It was very, very difficult, but the one thing that always kept me going was the connection to myself and to who I am, regardless of what people say or, however much abuse I encountered. It was always, I needed to be connected to myself. And I really always believed that if I have this, then I can help others to be connected to themselves as well. And that was my desire that kept me going. And I remember, I think probably over 25 years ago, I started a forum on MSN groups, and it was all about people coming together to express who they are, to feel safe, to be heard, to speak up, and just not to feel rejected or like they were alone. And that really mattered to me. And over the years, I've come to learn that there's a lot of people like this. Every one of us experience this, and we all need to be reminded of that you even though you feel like sometimes you can't express yourself, you have a voice and it matters, and you're here to do great things, and focus on who you are being in the moment, and share your story, share your challenges, share your experiences, because there will be other people there who can relate to you and who can connect to you in that way, and that way you can be supported.
Wow. And can you describe a little bit? I'm enjoying this, and I'm impressed and thankful for your sharing as openly and as vulnerability as you are. So thank you very much for that. Who is it that you work with? Like, what does your perfect customer look like, if that can be even described? Like is there a general perfect type of customer that is the most open and will have the most impact from working with you?
Those that are open and also like wanting to connect more with themselves on the inside. They know that they have a greater purpose and a greater mission, but they don't know actually how to access that. And those people are the actual people that I always seem to attract, whether they're entrepreneurs or whether they're people who just left corporate jobs and they're at a point in their lives where they actually want to get to know themselves and they want to, get to know what is it that makes them tick and what do they want to do with their lives, what are their passions. But usually those people, they have a lot of gifts. They're very talented in ways that they haven't accessed that before because they've been doing something completely different. But both people, they're very open and they really want to get to know themselves, and they want to make a real deep, long lasting change and to feel connected and fulfilled, and also to have the results that they want to have. Like those in who are in businesses, they are having sometimes financial struggles or emotional struggles. But the thing is, they also really just want to feel connected to themselves, to know that they have the power to change this around and create those results themselves. And, what does it look like to go inside of themselves to find that, and how does that work out for themselves? So it's, although that under core theme is the same, there's always different experiences and challenges that people are having, and they're all very open and like really wanting to grow and to commit to be in the way, the best version of themselves, but knowing that they're not perfect and challenges will arise. And how do they then overcome those challenges to be that best version for themselves in their lives and in their businesses, and then showing up in their businesses for other people. So it takes on a new level of leadership as well, because they're mastering themselves and mastering what it's like to truly lead a life and truly lead a business from being who they are.
So what you're saying resonates with me for sure. I think a lot of our values seem to be very much in sync. For some people, however, getting in touch with your inner self might seem a bit hoo-hoo or, wah-wah, like, what do you mean? I am me. So can you describe differently what you mean by inner self in this case? Like what does that taste like? Or what do you mean by the inner self?
So that, like anyone who is watching this, if you think back to a moment or an experience where you felt the most exhilarated and happy and joyful, and where you felt like everything's just working and everything, you just feel so happy because it's so connected to yourself and life. That's really it. That's essentially it. And being more connected to that part of you on a daily basis, especially when challenges arise, and how do you actually move through the challenges while still being that way? Because there's so many things that we get bombarded with other people, just like so many things, but being in that state, continuously and growing through that in that state. And I also use my intuition when I help my clients and help them to access their intuition as well. And with that, it's just, again, it's having this feeling, or, when you trust your gut, like something is wrong and you just need to take an action or do something that will change the direction of that experience. Or when, all of a sudden you have someone coming into your head and you need to contact them, and there's this great opportunity. So it's actually very subtle things, very simple things. And so the way that I share and explain it, it's more practical, real, down to earth language, because I have been in that situation where I wasn't explaining to people who can relate. And so, but it is those experiences when you have that. And can be that simple. And then how do you sustain that on a daily basis as well, and in your business, especially in your business? How do you follow that gut? How do you use it while still having that structure and, taking action? How do you manage the both?
Yeah, I like to playfully challenge you a little bit. And before I challenge you, just for the sake of the discussion, my personal journey over the last, 2 years have been really based on mindfulness and meditation and connection with self and source and alignment within. Those are those are other words that maybe can describe what you're talking about. However, a lot of those that are still in their intellectual self as opposed to their instinctual self might think this is a whole lot of nonsense, because they want to follow the facts, and they want to follow the data, and they want to be certain, and do analysis. And most of what I learned at the MBA was more intellect based as opposed to instinct based. How can you help people sort of rationalize maybe these two aspects of awareness and decision making?
That's a great question, because both are very valid as well. And the thing is how I help my clients, because everyone is very different in, following their intuition and in the decision making. But I have met people who are completely in that logic mind, that they have got so stuck in it that it's completely blocked them from doing anything. And it is going back to that place that I was sharing about, that going back to yourself, when you are like that, because you're not in your mind at all, you're just simply relaxed. And it is going back to that, because I think the people who are more in their minds, when they can get back into that space, they're more able to access that as well. That space where you are relaxed and you're not thinking about anything. And those that are more intuitive based, they actually need to be more be more thinking strategically and in their mind, and to be using systems, because there's also people who are very just following the intuition and not having the solid foundations in their business. And that's really one of the ways, but it's very different for everyone. It's not one way or the other, but in that way, if a logic person, if you can see when you are relaxed and when you're doing something where you feel at ease and you're not in your mind, it's a completely different world than when you are in your mind and you completely come back, to that place within you, and you feel grounded, and everything just, you're not stressed. You're not trying to control everything.
Well, and I appreciate very much that these are both true, and there needs to be a balance between those what some people might consider sort of perspectives that might be in conflict. You mentioned that these journeys that you go through with people are really custom and unique, but can you give us a flavor of what a typical journey would be, or engagement, or
like,
not sure
how
what you
would
would call
it be
it?
like in a session with a client?
Yeah. Or is there a number of sessions? Is there an arc to the story, or how does that typically reveal itself when you're working with someone?
It typically depends on really what they need and how much support that they need, and always we have like a conversation before. But like you, I do send them an application form to ask them a couple of questions, so I know where they are, and also whether they are the right person to then have the phone conversation. And from them, I always know like how much time, and they also know how much time, and we always guess exactly the time that is needed. It could be like 6 months or longer. And then I always go to the challenges that they have. So in the application form, the struggle that they've had like for years, that's what we work on. And no matter how long it takes, that is the first thing that we look into, going straight to the core of that issue. And there's usually so many other layers that come up as a result of that. But it's that then clears the path for their results, because then they do start taking the actions, but from a completely different way of being or state of mind. I just remember this client that I had who was also very, logical in her mind, but she was also a spiritual entrepreneur. And she was struggling for many years, doing, so many things that past coaches told her to do, but she wasn't really getting anywhere at all whatsoever. And then when we met, we went to the core issue of what was actually going on. And it was something completely, entirely different that was actually keeping her energy low and holding her back, which was related to debt. And then once that was cleared up, she then started to receive money and then have different conversations with people and family members, and everything just changed. And it was really big for her at that time. But we wouldn't have known if we had gone to the route, because her situation was that she was financially struggling and she couldn't, she thought she had to do a specific task or more work to make up for that. But in actual fact, she didn't need to do any of that. She actually needed to have more fun and relax and step away from the computer. That was very difficult for her, because years of doing things, she had to just step away. That was very difficult to do that, but it worked, and she did do that, and things did change. So it was practical, and it was also energetic and emotional work that we did. And also
I hear so many stories more and more about exactly that, which again, from an MBA perspective, is counterintuitive. A dear friend of mine here in the Netherlands, she's a virtual assistant, and she does some marketing work and things. And at one point she was really struggling getting business. And then the next time I talked to her, she said, yeah, well, things really picked up. And then I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, I stopped trying. I started reading books and started having fun. Yeah. And then things started to move. I was like, wow, great. I love it. I even have a t-shirt that I made for myself that says, I am a being, not a doing. And it's sort of my way of trying to remind myself that effort and action alone is not satisfying or bringing joy. And oftentimes, if you're so into the work, you don't have the space for the inspiration. So one little side story, and again, it's because it happened to me yesterday. I'm delightfully embarrassed. I had set aside yesterday to do a full recording of a course around the simplicity scan that I was going to put on Udemy. And it took almost 4 hours. And for like 3 hours of content, I had done a dry run the week before. Felt good about it, and decided to go pick up my son from school and get out into the sun and shake it off, and came back. And when I walked back into my office, I realized that the mute button on my microphone was blinking, which means none of the sound was recorded from that whole experience. And so for me, I just laughed at it. It's like, okay, maybe I was forcing too much work. And then, and actually the conversations that I've had because of that little micro failure have actually evolved into actually a new and better course that I will record next week. So it was like, I also had a choice of being frustrated and angry and being in that moment like that. But I was like, oh, wow, okay, this is ridiculous. And then just, walked away from it, and then had some, lovely conversations again that brought inspiration that will make it better next time. And then maybe the next one will screw up as well, and then that will evolve again. So it's this is that balance between sort of intellectual planning and having the space of awareness. So wow, your customers I believe are really everywhere. It's sort of a global community. How do you engage? Because I was delighted, and when we start wrapping up, I'll point people not to your website because you don't have one, and I think that is perfect. You have LinkedIn, you have Facebook. A lot of times coaches these days don't even need a website. Coaches, mentors, because actually you need to be where social engagement happens. So how do you get in touch with all of these people that are open and to benefit from your work?
Mainly they get in touch with me, or we meet like randomly and then we connect, or they send me a message, and that's it. Yeah, it's always been a kind of a natural way of connecting. It's never been forced, and I'm just usually, just being myself and sharing on Facebook, but not like all the time, but just when I feel like it. And sometimes in Facebook groups, if I comment or say something, but it's not, like all the time. And then it happens organically that, or my clients refer their friends or someone who knows someone, and that's how it happens. Yeah, and that's the reason as well why I did have a website for many, many years. Why my intuition told me, you don't need a website. I've never had people come via the website ever anyway. And so it was the best decision, because it's better if I'm, in LinkedIn and Facebook and that's it. And I don't really, and if I'm out and about and meet someone, but I'm not thinking, I want a client, nothing like that. I'm just living my life. And then if it gets to be the right person, then it gets to be the right person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. What I find also after having done many of these interviews is the people who are most at peace with their business are not selling. They're being themselves. They're flowing. They're open to engaging, and through whatever journey they've gone through, they have found this way that they're, what I call is they're floating. They're floating with the momentum of the business, and in that natural, comfortable state, they are again open for connections and people. And then those that are driven by stress, and for me, I think we've all been in both of those domains and have tried different things. If you're trying to hustle and sell, the effort just doesn't pay back. It's really fascinating, because it's almost like if you're pitching something that needs to be truly sold, maybe even against someone's will, then it's probably the wrong thing anyways. So it's
can I interrupt you there for 1 second? Because
I hope you do. Please go
selling,
for it.
I've come to meet a lot of entrepreneurs that they have this fear of selling because it's sleazy, and I've had, like, for them, I've come to realize they actually need to do that because it's a service to them to do that, to break through that attachment or idea that, selling is this. And when they've broken through it, they've come to experience that selling is love, and then receive exactly who they're meant to work with. But it's like, we can have so many ideas of what selling is that we hold ourselves back from, truly expressing ourselves. And so I've come to realize that selling is, is being of service and is love. You are expressing yourself. And so, I'm actually always open, even when people send me messages who I don't know, they're saying, their program. I feel that that's very courageous that they do that, even if they don't know me and I don't know them. It's like kudos to them. And it's like there's a lot of backlash as well on selling, what it should be. And it's really
I think that I would love to hear more in your the selling is love. I want to hear more of that. The spin that I like to give, again, it depends on who I'm talking about, is focus on sharing or focus on giving, and focus on connecting, and then in the belief that what you are providing is truly valuable for people, and there's people in need, there's almost an obligation, to share, and then at least allow people to make the decision on whether they want to buy at that point, as opposed to proactively selling. So tell me more about selling as love. That's much better than I've ever come up with.
So I see, like, exactly what you were sharing. When people are really passionate about what they do and they value their own services, it becomes natural to share. And so how I see selling is that love from within themselves. They're sharing their own love. It's like really their work out in the world. So it is a form of love if they don't sell. You know, again, there's like so many connotations of how to sell or which way, but really it is a form of love, because once you start sharing in that way, when you actually ask someone for the sale, even that's, for some people that I've worked with, that's really, really difficult. It's like the most terrifying thing, but it's the very thing that they need to do. So they start valuing and loving themselves and their services, and when they do, they experience how it's the most loving thing that they can do for themselves and their potential customer, because it's like that connection is open then. So that's really how I see it. It's loving, it's love, for yourself, love from yourself to others of who you are and what you do and the services that you value, because it's making a difference to the planet. So, if you're withholding it's just so sad. You don't, you need to get out there and overcome that to see it as a good thing. People need your services, and the more that people know about you, the more that people will see you and really, connect with you and really see the good that you're bringing into their space.
Yeah. Wow. Anna, beautifully said. We are out of time, and sadly so. For me, this has been wonderful. Selling is love. Love is what you're providing through your company. I think these are such profound perspectives. I really appreciate it. And for anyone else who's listening, who appreciates it and who would like some support from Anna, I will put her LinkedIn and her Facebook links in her podcast page at ebullient.com/podcast. And you can connect with Anna on through either of those channels. So Anna, it has been great to have you here, as always, but in this case, really meaningful lessons and new perspectives for me. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really happy to have spoken to you, and thank you to all the viewers who watch this as well. So thank you.
Learn more at ebullient.com/podcast.